Don't say a word up to my tree peeps.
You good? Village Council Special Public Budget Meeting. Today's February 25th, 2019. This time is 7:30 p.m. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall and mailed to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled to the same as provided by law of a schedule, including date and time of this meeting. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Knudsen? Here. Councilman Seaton? Here. Councilman Voigt?
Here.
Councilwoman Walsh? Here. Mayor Hache?
Here. Please stand for flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Join us for a moment of silence in honor of the brave men and women serving the nation's armed forces and as first responders. Okay, public comments? None. All right.
Okay, so welcome to the first night of budget meetings. And I just wanted to let you know that there's been a very long process that started back in September. And so I'm going to let Bob go through all that information about the many iterations of this budget, and then we'll go from there.
In July, when I sent the memo out telling all department heads to start considering their budgets for 2019. We gave them till September 14th to come back to us with what their requested amounts were in both operating and capital. From mid-October 16th to the 18th, we met with the department heads. We went through each budget individually, each line item in that budget. As you can see, there's many line items. And we also addressed their capital needs, what they're requesting, and how much it would cost, and if they had any quotes or anything else to support that. And that was just Steve and me. From November to January, we processed all this information, got it into a readable format. Steve entered all the salary information with the contractual increases for 2019. We put together the spreadsheets for the capital budget to see what the impact would be for the total for every request in the village. On February 13th and 15th, Heather, Steve, and I met with the department heads again. We walked our way through their requests. We came up with a recommendation after coming to a consensus as to head count, what their needs were, what their wants were as far as capital goes and operating. So we present that to you in the columns, second or third column from the left. You'll see the proposed amount, and that's what we're asking our department heads to talk about tonight. The department directors are going to present their proposed budgets, their 2018 accomplishments, and their goals for 2019 going forward. So we have 4 meetings coming up for this. Tonight, March 1st, March 4th, and March 8th. On the 13th, we'll ask council to introduce the 2019 operating capital budgets with the anticipation of adopting on April 10th. So if you have any questions for the directors tonight, by all means, please ask them. If for some reason there's something you forgot, you can certainly communicate with Heather, Steve, department head, or me, and we'll get back to you with the information.
And I just wanted to let you know, for those of you who have books, your capital budgets are in number 21, so you might want to pull that out separately. So, say that again? No, you don't need to, because you have it on there, but 21 is the capital budget, tab 21. Okay. So, okay, so we'll start with the building department, and we have Tom Yatka, the director of the building department, here to discuss his budget with you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Good evening. 2018 was kind of an exciting year.
Just talk into the mic, please.
Okay. 2018 was kind of an exciting year for us because we, in March, we got dealt a new set of regulations by the Department of Community Affairs, which significantly impacted the way we operate, But having said that, and before I get into those numbers, I'd just like to read a few numbers relative to our operation last year. There were over 5,600 plan reviews performed and almost 2,000 permits were issued, which resulted in just over 6,900 inspections. Having said that, with the new legislation that went into effect in March, we calculated the number of permits that were issued from January to that date in March, and then I prorated it for the balance of the year, and it would be anticipated that we lost another 240 permits and probably just over $150,000 in revenue. But to that point, that was offset by the fact that some of the multifamily housing projects had started and had gotten either full or some partial permits. So we certainly did not decline in revenue, because for the third year in a row our revenues have increased. But that was significantly offset by the fact that we had the multifamily housing project starting. With regard to that new legislation that eliminated the necessity for roofing, siding, bathroom, and kitchen permits to some extent, we held a public forum on June 6th to advise all of our stakeholders of the new regulations and make them aware of how we were going to be able to proceed in the forthcoming future. So other than that, I mean, projects have started, plan review was underway for the bigger projects. We've had numerous construction meetings. I mean that was one of our highlights, was trying to coordinate all the work that was going on simultaneously. And it's now, as you probably have driven around town, you've seen that it's taken shape and everything seems to be blossoming at the same time. So, and that's reflected in my budget for 2019. One thing that we did not anticipate in just a few weeks ago is that our full-time electrical inspector retired and left us a little bit short-handed. So one of the objectives of 2019 is to replace him as a full-time employee, and also to look for a part-time temporary inspector that may be dedicated specifically to the multifamily housing projects, or worked in such a fashion that they'll be able to offset some of the backlog that we're anticipating, because they haven't started framing yet, obviously, and we're still waiting for the Enclave project to drop off plans later this year. Plus, we'll be doing work on the parking garage. So we're going to have 5 major projects underway this year at the same time. You'll see an increase in our overtime budget, or our line item number 14. That's reflected in the fact that we have recently adopted and look like we're going to adopt a few more ordinances that are going to require some significant oversight, and there's a potential for after-hours inspections or court appearances. Further going down the line, the number 30, line item 30, you'll see a rise in that, but that is offset. The $14,000 that's budgeted there was incorporated from a line item at number 146. So 146 was rolled into 030, which raised that budget by an extra $2,000. That is a number that we have no direction as of yet as to whether the state's going to adopt the 2018 code. And if they do, we need to buy new sets of books, and that's going to result in a few $1,000 expenditure. All right. In line item 127, I've been informed recently that the lease or purchase of vehicles will be eliminated because we're anticipating getting a newer vehicle handed to us from the police department as they replace some of their vehicles. So we'll add to our fleet and take one of the less reliable vehicles out of service and replace it with that, so that $1,800 will be coming out. And other than that, I think our budget is pretty straightforward. It's been gone over pretty much with a fine-tooth comb over the last couple of months, as the CFO has indicated, and I'd entertain any questions you may have.
Thank you, Tom. I just had a question, if you want to help me understand a little bit more about the full-time salaries have gone up, I guess about 14%, but then the part-time salaries have gone down significantly. So how does that play in with the losing the inspector and then replacing him and finding a new part-time person and all of that?
That's a good catch, Councilman, because I noticed that just a short time ago that there's a deficiency. We did not account for the 2 part-time plumbing inspectors that we have now, so we have to add approximately another $48,000 into that part-time salary. Because the 2 plumbing inspectors are there already. The 52 that's indicated on that line is for the temporary part-time inspector that we're hoping to hire, plus money set aside to backfill or have an electrical inspector on standby, much like we have now, all right, who's filling in while we're doing interviews to make that full-time replacement.
Tom, that's offset by Arnie's retirement. We have a full-year salary in here for him, so that will balance that out. It's just a matter of shifting from the full-time to the part-time. So we're covered as far as the total cost.
Okay. That was going to be my next question, because obviously he retired, he had a long career in the village, and he was probably at the top of the salary, and if you were going to hire somebody new, then they'd be, starting over at the bottom.
So his full salary is right here, so that hasn't been adjusted, so there'll probably be a slight decrease, actually.
Okay.
When did that happen?
Well, he's retiring effective March 1.
Right.
Oh, okay, so that just really...
He left on Friday.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, he's effective March 1.
Okay, so that's good. That satisfies everything I had for that. Thank you very much, Tom. I appreciate it. And
I'm good. I had the same question about that difference on there, so I'm good.
Thanks, Tom. I guess the question that I have in terms of the multifamily housing, the developments, do we have an anticipated spreadsheet in terms of...
I just need you to speak more into the mic. Thanks.
Yeah, it's on. Yeah, it's on.
I can't hear Bernadette.
You can't hear me at all?
Well, now I can, if we
Can
talk
you?
in the microphone.
So do we have like a spreadsheet set up in terms of what inspections they're going to have, timing? Like, have they given us any type of a construction plan so that we can anticipate? Because we can hire all the people we want, but if they all want the inspections the same days, the same, you know what I mean? Like, are we going to hold them to our schedule as opposed to us being held to their schedules?
I anticipate that because of the redundancy we have built into the department now, and the advertisement for the full-time electrical inspector comes with a provision that you come with a multiple license. The man who just left had electrical and building.
Okay.
We're looking to replace him with somebody exact licensing.
Similar credentials so that they can...
That would still give us 4 inspectors. I don't think there'll be any diminished delivery of service, even if all 4 get going at the same time, because there's 4 or potentially 5 people in the department that could conduct building inspections. That workload, though, will be allocated based on experience and time.
Okay. And then, are there going to be other line items here that are going to be directly correlated to those developments? Or is there going to be anything that you feel might pop up, or is there anything that you've been kind of thinking of that because of the developments, because of the different, there's going to be other things that you might have to inspect that you wouldn't have anticipated, or there might be other inspections that maybe our staff would have to call outside? I know that there's been some challenges up in Upper Saddle River. Do we anticipate, or we have anticipated that there wouldn't be any challenges like that?
don't anticipate anything out of the ordinary with with any of these projects. I think the groundwork's already been done,
Okay.
and
For two of them, right? Or three of them?
three of them.
Three of them, okay.
So it should proceed, according to the plan that was laid out several months ago.
All right, that's all I had.
Thank you, Mayor. No questions, Tom. Nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I just have one question. I see we have allowances for the purchase or lease of vehicles, but not for gasoline. Are these electric vehicles? How do we not?
No, we're going to we're going to strike, I think, line item 127 out of the budget because the police department will be replacing some of their vehicles, and we anticipate getting a vehicle from them.
Right. But even then, I mean, there's no gasoline. I would imagine you guys have to go out. I mean, inspections don't come to you. You go to the inspections.
Right. I don't think
Who's
we've
paying for that gas?
had a gasoline allowance since I've been here and done budget presentations.
It gets charged to a specific line item for gas purchases. So all the vehicles don't get allocated back to the
Oh, they
department.
don't. Okay.
They go straight to a line item.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
Hey, you didn't go over the Board of Adjustment, is that,
I have that.
it doesn't look like there's any.
We could, I think we're going to do that with planning, actually, on another night, because the secretary is for both boards now, so I think we're
Okay.
going to wait for that.
All right, fair enough.
Okay, so thank you.
Oh,
And
thank you.
we're a little early, so that's good. And we'll start with Dylan Hanson, our Director of IT MIS.
Hello and good evening. Happy Monday. All right, so starting operating. Yeah. Operating, there's an increase in the contractual services for municipality in a box, our laser fiche program, and we're also looking to do the ESRI program this year with the municipality in a box, which is a mapping software. So that's the increase in that.
Explain a little bit about ESRI so they get an idea.
Okay, ESRI is a mapping program. We're going to be splitting the cost with the water department. Think about Google Maps in a three-dimensional, and we're going to have the mappings of all the water pipes, sewage pipes, electrical. It's going to help with the guys going to do markouts. It's also going to be our inventory. We're getting a GPS location device where we'll be able to send people out and do inventory of signs, curbage, anything that the village owns or an asset, and we're going to be able to tag it into this program. So in the future, we'll be able to go through if a stop sign is missing, a yield sign is missing, we're going to be able to notice it right away. So it's something we've been wanting to do because a lot of the stuff is right now in the heads of the veteran employees, and as they move out, we're losing that information, so we want to do something that's going to better equip us to maintain it.
So what's the name of the system you said?
It's called ESRI, E-S-R-I.
Thank you.
So it will tie into the SDL program too, so as you go into, if you click on a block and lot from our end, we're going to be able to see everything about the block and lot from if they have dogs, any work performed on it for permits from building department, and we're going to be able to also share this data with the police department, engineering department, finance department, anybody that goes out, even the water department. So if they're going to read water meters and they see, oh, they have two Rottweilers, they'll be able to be aware of that before they even get out of the truck. So that it will be a safety thing too for our employees too. It's going to be a lot of information. It's something we've been wanting to do. This is like the second phase of the SDL.
Just talk into the microphone, please. Thanks.
Sorry, sorry about that. How often does it get updated?
Well, we're going to come out, once we get the software, we're going to come up with a plan with the engineering department on how we're going to get the information in there from the beginning. So we're going to try to utilize probably interns from the get-go, and we're going to try to get as much information that they already have in AutoCAD drawings, everything that we have in our filing system, uploaded into the system. Once that happens, then as we're doing road work, permits, so on and so forth, all that stuff's live. So as the building department receives any permits, it's already in the system. Our taxes, the tax assessor automatically updates the system when they get any change in the information. I mean, it's as we go here, as we update here, it's going to update. Even the health department uses it right now to go out to do inspections, or they also do all the pet licensing, so it's instantaneous. If somebody comes in to register a dog, it will show up once they're done registering.
Okay. Thanks.
And then we'll also be able to share information and mappings to residents too, that any of the public information on it as well, right in the website. It's a portal. Some towns use it. I know our Rich Calvi is familiar with the software already, and we have 2 people in the water department that are very familiar with the software as it is. So they're going to be able to help us, and I've also looked at training for our engineering department as well, and I budgeted for that. What else is there? Materials and supplies, toner, cartridges, the normal everyday usage stuff. Purchase of office equipment is, hold on. Oh, we have a room over in the fire department we want to turn into a server room. So we want to buy some shelving and stuff to go in there. Right now we do have one rack, and we did an air conditioning system in there 2 years ago, and there was a slight issue with it, but they've resolved the problem. So now I want to move forward with making that an off-site server room from the village hall. So if in case something happens to this building, we can go over there, have access to our data, and still function. So it would be like a secondary site for us as well. It's been something we've been wanting to do. Anybody have any questions?
Just a question regarding the ESRI. Are we going to, aside from loading up the assets and being able to track them, is there going to be any functionality that will tie into like a depreciation schedule so that we know when certain things have to be replaced? And are we going to get like an update, like an alert somewhere to say, hey, listen, we have this asset that's being tracked, and this happens to be a computer, and we know that, you know, it'll be obsolete within 3 or 4 years. You know, is there going to be something like that that will help us kind of keep track of these things?
As far as it's going to be more for everything from fire hydrants to manholes to piping to as much information we have. As far as the depreciation and that schedules, I would have to look into that, see if there is fields within the software that we can keep track of.
I would imagine a fire hydrant has, you know, I mean, a finite life to certain components of it that might have to be replaced every so often. Is that going to allow us to better track and have like a schedule of things that are coming up? That way we do more preventive maintenance and...
I do believe right now the water department has something already in their current software. I do believe that will carry over, but I can check with the water department people to get a confirmation on that.
Ramon, we have a fixed asset system that we're also implementing this year that will help keep track of the maintenance on vehicles. What the ESRI system does is primarily infrastructure, but we do have something that we're putting in place this year that will address what your concerns are.
The other thing too the ESRI will do is if they click on a fire hydrant, we'll be able to bring up when it was last inspected or when it was tested too. It's going to keep track of that.
Questions?
Thank you, Dylan. Just a general question. It looks like the budget's increasing significantly, so what are some of the biggest drivers of the increase?
One of the things, last year I budgeted for Cisco services to be renewed, and because I bought a firewall from them last year, I got that the availability into their back-end system for free because it comes with a hardware for 1 year. So this year I'm not buying any Cisco equipment, so this year I do have to renew it. The SDL goes up slightly each year. I'm trying to think what else is on here that's driving force.
Well, that goes up because more departments are getting put it into the SDL system, they're able to access it and use it for their day-to-day operations. So I would imagine that that makes sense then.
Yeah, well, we have 25 licenses right now, so it's, no matter what, it's still going up. It's gone up since we bought it, I want to say probably about 2,000 to 3,000 each year. It goes up.
We also have Swagit,
Swag is the other one.
with the cameras and right, so that's in here as well.
And then does that, where did the camera operators come out of? Because I know that they were similar in cost, but they used
It was in council, I believe.
That was in council, so then basically the camera operators have moved from the council budget to this budget, and it'll be the automated system.
Correct.
Yeah, it'll be automated, and then we're going to have the availability to also do manual if we have to do a special meeting that's not scheduled. And the other option too is I have some money budgeted in capital. We're going to be able to also video from anywhere on the fiber loop. So if we have to do a public access, we have to do a meeting downstairs, we'll be able to do it live on the public access channels.
So it's all basically like software and these new data systems to track and help us, better maintain our assets and everything we had. That's the major driver in the increase here.
Yeah.
And these are things that we obviously haven't had in the past.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That's it.
I can see on from the 2018 budget where your differences are, so I see that, Dylan, but I had a question on, let me just go back one page here. Hang on. Just bear with me, I'm saving a tree. Okay. Okay, so on our budget credits, let me just go back. Okay, good. Line 12. It just seems such a discrepancy to me on that. On the 2018 actual, we had a 59,992. And then in our request, there's 58,992, and then on the proposed, it's 3787. Can somebody just explain that to me? That it's like a big discrepancy to me.
Mathematical, an Excel mistake here. That 58,000 should have been carried to the proposed budget. See, it's showing 3787.
So the 3787 should be the 58,992?
That's correct.
Okay,
I
so then
apologize.
that
That's my
changes
fault.
that 182, 182, down
Right,
back
correct.
to the, does that come back down to the 126,997?
It should, yes.
Okay, all right, got it. All right.
Sorry.
No, I didn't think it was possible to have computer error now. I'm relying heavily on technology here. Okay, all right. And then the other question I have is, let me just go back one more page. So are we hiring another person?
Yes.
Okay, can you just want to explain that?
And we're looking for an individual that is specializing in networking for switches, and their primarily focus is going to be water department fiber loop, as well as back me up on the Village Hall fiber loop equipment as well.
Okay. Okay, all right.
Councilman Walsh?
Thank you, Dylan. So obviously, one of the biggest questions that we get asked on a regular basis are the acoustics, the sound in the room, and I know that that's part of the capital project, probably not in here, but that seems to be the biggest challenge for us, so I don't know if you want to maybe just give us an update on what's happening.
I will be more than happy to give you an update. They came in Friday. Well, actually, I had an individual from a company, a vendor that we've used for our current recording software. They didn't do the audio. They came in, did a little recon on last Monday. Two sound engineers came on Friday. They did a walk through the whole entire thing, went through all the equipment that we currently have. They checked out all the mics, and they also took measurements of the room, and they are giving me a quote this Friday.
So is that reflected anywhere in here? Because this is going to be an additional thing that you're going to be monitoring, I guess. So is that part
I
of
had money previously from the previous year for this already.
Okay.
So I'm estimating that it should cover the the cost is going to be.
Okay. But is that going to be your team that's going to be monitoring it? Or how is it going to, in terms of any challenges that come up, because it's going to be different than...
I'm looking for a contract with the vendor to maintain any of the hardware for 1 year, to see if there's any adjustments that have to be made and everything, and I will talk to them as well to come to a couple of meetings, council meetings, planning board meetings, and court sessions to make sure everything is corrected.
Okay.
One of the things that they did talk to me about is putting soundboards up on the ceiling because of the dome shape to take out some of the echo, because there is nothing that absorbs sound in here, and that's one of the biggest challenges. That's why you can hear somebody in back doors while you're standing over there, but you can't hear somebody right in front of you.
Right, okay. So all of that is reflected in the capital budget and in the salaries and in what you're going to be working on with the contract?
Salaries.
In terms of because you're not going to be here if you're...
Oh, if something
you're
goes
not
on during a
presence.
meeting?
Yeah, so if something, so...
I mean, I will be around for a couple of them, but the newer equipment is going to have it's going to be self-adjusting to a certain extent to where it will lower itself if there's an echo or something in that sense. So there will be an override, but there won't be somebody here anymore on the system. But the system will be network controllable.
Okay.
So if
there was somebody on call that could handle it?
Yeah, we can take care of that as an on-call.
But it's going to be part of your team here? There wouldn't be additional people other than...
No, it would just...
the vendor maybe having somebody...
It could be a vendor call or it could be us. I have still talked to them about that after they come back with a proposal.
Okay. All right, that's all I had.
What's the cost of that, by the way? You said you had some money saved up. What are you anticipating it's going to cost?
I'm estimating around $25,000 to $28,000.
To fix the sound system?
Yeah. That's new mixers, speakers, soundboards, wiring, installation, and programming.
You want to come up with a date as to when that might happen?
Once they give me a proposal, well, when I was talking to them, they said they would need about 3 days install time. So I told them to give me the price, including a Saturday, so this way that we could do it Friday, Saturday, Monday.
Okay.
And we could be done.
Good, great. As it relates to that network administrator, you have 28.8. So is that a part-time with you and part-time with the water department, or what?
It's a full-time, but it's split amongst us and the water department.
So they also have 28.8 in theirs? Got it.
Correct.
Yeah?
Right, yes.
Is that correct? The water department has half of this too? Yes. Okay, all right, thank you.
I have to say, I was very happy to see you walking around with the sound engineer the other day when I was in here.
Oh, yeah, you were here.
Yeah. Very encouraging. Just one question. In training, I see significant drop, 59% versus last year. How much of the training is mandatory versus discretionary? I mean, I would imagine you have to keep up with certain certifications. How much of this, I mean, are you cutting into the discretionary type of training? I hope it's not cutting into...
Well, the thing is the big drop is the SDL training. They've changed, because of the increase with their software package, they've included free training with that, so now I don't have to pay for the training. So that was the $10,000 drop. So now when we bring another department onto the SDL package, they'll come here and train them.
Great, thank you.
That was a great surprise when they said that to me. I was like, ooh.
Okay, so we'll move on to the capital for MIS, which is in...
F4.
tab 21 and then tab 4, right? Yes.
Everybody good? Okay, so in my MIS request for capital, it's mostly to do with servers and computers. We try to maintain replacing computers in the system to about 5 to 7 years. So we'll be replacing certain departments such as finance, health, engineering, and police department this year.
And you mentioned something in the budget hearing with us about Windows 10, right? Is part of the reason for the replacement?
What's that?
Windows 10?
Windows 10 has a lot to do with it. Windows 7 is being end of life this August, so I have to try to get rid of all Windows 7 computers by that time too. There are some Windows 7 computers I can upgrade to Windows 10, but anything about 4 or 5 years or older is not they're gonna run real slow. So we're better off just replacing for now. We're also archive servers. We are accumulating a lot of data now that we're doing a lot of stuff digitally, from email to scanning the files, PDFs and stuff. So I'm starting to get low on some space to archive a lot of the data. So we want to buy a larger archive system. Backup servers as well. We want to do an off-site backup from here as well at the fire department. So we want to have a heavy-duty server that can handle a nightly backup every night of all our data here. We're currently doing it to the 2 locations, the 2 backup servers here and a small SAN that's located in another building. But I want to have an additional space to put it on that will allow us faster execution of any files that we have to restore.
Telephones.
ESRI software, hold on. PD ruggedized laptops. These are the laptops to replace, upgrade and replace police department ruggedized computers that are in the police cars. Some of them are also over 5 years old, so this will be replacing those. Swagit, that's with the camera system, and telephone. The telephone system we currently have is Toshiba. They announced last year that they will no longer be making telephones. A company called Mitel bought them out. Mitel really wants us to switch over to their phone system. I'm weighing the options and seeing what's available out there. I would prefer to go towards possibly a Cisco or another vendor type system that's digitally, because I want to try to keep the system in-house. This gives us the ability for a recording system with the police department. It gives us control. If there's an outage, again, we can still communicate amongst buildings over the fiber connections. It gives us a little bit more flexibility of controlling the phones and everything else. I did look at cloud services as well, and they do get pricey, and it comes out of an operating where this is a capital project. And then the Wi-Fi access in the parks. This is the Wi-Fi up into the CBD park. Not CBD park.
Memorial Park at Van Ness Square.
Yeah, Memorial Park at Van Ness Square. If you want to add additional parks into this, it's about $3,000 to $5,000 per park. So I'm going to leave that in your hands if you guys want to add additional parks amongst this. Currently, we do have 600 subscribers on our guest Wi-Fi. So it is being utilized, and that's just right now currently at Graydon, Stable, and the Village Hall. We've had 600 people register and utilize the system. So it is being used. Any questions?
Thank you again, Dylan. Just about the phone system, so the 262 that's in here is subject to change if we go with a different vendor. It could go up or down, or?
It could go up or down. I did price out a fairly elaborate system, more bells and whistles than we needed, just to see what's available out there. But we can look at, we also have the ability to surplus our current equipment, and there probably are towns that would be interested in it, because there are towns that are very heavily invested into Toshiba, and they might not be looking to replace, but they would be looking for parts. So it might be something that we can sell for a nice price.
Okay, and as that happens, you would keep us updated
Yeah.
as to the additional costs or whatever new system and everything else.
Yeah, I would put this out. I do want to put it out possibly to a bid and get a couple vendors in here and see what they recommend. But I just did this from a count of all the phone systems, a count of the sites, and I just had an audit done on our phone lines, so a count of mental lines that we have. And then a voicemail, and we just currently replaced our recording system for the police department a couple of years ago. And most of the systems are compatible.
Okay, good, thank you.
So that would be put in the bid.
I have no questions.
Councilman Walsh, no?
So you mentioned archive servers, if we need more capacity to back up stuff, or to archive stuff.
Backup's different than an archive.
I get it.
Okay.
Yeah. So archiving, what does that get us for 26,000 as far as being able to archive? And how long are we supposed to archive information?
It depends. There's different retention periods on different types of documentation and email and so on and so forth. Right now, I do have a lot of the information on portable hard drives duplicated, but as Oprahs come in, it becomes very time-consuming pulling that data off and searching for it through hard drives. So this would be a better place to store all this data. It would give us faster access to it as well, and we'll cut down our time on Oprah.
How much memory is that for 26,000?
This will give us almost 10 terabytes.
10 terabytes, okay. Just for curiosity, how much do we have stored so far on these hard drives? How many terabytes do we have stored?
Just counting us and not the police department?
Yeah.
I want to say around, we have an active 6.
6 terabytes?
Active.
Wow.
That's including all the databases. There's going to be an increase with the ESRI. Email increases every day. We have a lot of data.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
All right, so I do have one question. How do we stop all this junk mail that comes into our...
You're only seeing
my
a
God.
minuscule amount of it. We process anywhere from 7,000 to 14,000 emails a day. Out of those, about 90% of them are spam. They get filtered out that you don't even see.
So if we block them, can we try to block them from ours? Is it going to
You
even work?
can use your junk mail filters and everything,
Yeah.
but it's not going to block everything. They have gotten very smart to get stuff passed.
Yeah.
We just had a situation last week where somebody got their computer, I don't want to use somebody got access to their computer and used the file to send out emails as if it was from them with the virus attached as a locked zip file. And we had 2 people open it, no infection, and everything was fine. Our virus protection was able to protect it on a local computer, but our email filters were unable to pick it up because it was a locked file. So they're getting very, very smart. So now it's mostly, and that's one thing we were just talked about recently in our IT meeting, was to have somebody come in and give a class, maybe the JIF or something, to the employees to get them to be more aware of what they're clicking on. So that's what it really comes down to.
Just adding to Councilman Seaton's question regarding the telephone system, you mentioned that Mitel is very motivated to do our business with us. How motivated are they? I mean, are they willing to give some concessions here that would make it attractive, or just sort of the only game in town?
I would be curious to see what they would give us for our current equipment towards a new system, but I would also be curious to see what surrounding towns that are heavily invested would give us for our equipment. I mean, we have two different ways to look at it.
But are they the only option that we have at the moment?
Mitel is not the only option. There are other vendors on state contracts and are very hungry for our business.
Okay. So I guess we go with the hungriest cat.
That's why a bid would be
Okay.
would be interesting to see what they would come back and recommend.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Dylan.
Going back to my room.
So our next budget is our Health Department, and that's Dawn Citrillo, our Director of Health.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm going to make it short and sweet. I have a few accomplishments that I just wanted to mention from last year. We were able to pass, as you all know, the licensing of the e-cigarettes, and we brought in $5,000, and that money will be used this year towards education, especially in the schools with the kids. I actually have a meeting with our health educator to come up with some ideas. And we also licensed the cosmetology establishments. So our goal is to have them all inspected within the next few months. We're going to start inspecting them soon. And another goal was, another accomplishment was that we did receive a grant from the county for $1,800, and I was able to use some of that money to do some mental health first aid classes. And we did a Lime Out at Riverdale School, and we also did some education for the day campers. And some goals for 2019, I would like to form an official stigma-free committee. I do have West Bergen interested, and hopefully Valley Hospital, and we can form more of a committee and do some more outreach, especially not just mental health, but really with the drug addictions. I think it's all related and it's critical. And I think Heather mentioned it at the last council meeting, that we're trying to bring back Geese Piece, where we're going to oil the eggs to help control the population. So if anybody's interested in assisting, it should be a lot of fun, and hopefully this will help with the population. And the last thing was Nancy Bigosin, myself, and Heather had met to really increase the employee wellness program, which we've been doing a month-to-month program, and so far it's starting out really well. Our next program is in March. Actually, we have a yoga class March 4th for employees, which is free, and Body and Brain is coming over to do it. It's at lunchtime. If anybody's interested, you're welcome to come. And then we also have a nutrition program after work, which I think will be a lot of fun. I'm getting a lot of people telling me they're interested. So that's it for my few goals and accomplishments. And as far as my budget, it's pretty much the same as last year. There aren't a lot of changes. The only potential is I may have somebody retiring at the end of the year, but nothing is official yet. And if she does retire, I would need to hire somebody for some overlap for training.
Questions, Mike?
Thank you, Dawn. No, I didn't have any questions. I just want to let you know I am Geese Piece certified, and I have a badge and everything else. And I know that March is the egg oiling month of the year to go out and get them. So give me a call if you need a hand.
That would be wonderful. I'm very nervous about the whole thing. I'm excited, but I'm very nervous. But I also talked to Chris, and he's interested. So thank you. I think it's really necessary. I know it was very successful in the past.
Oh, yeah, so I definitely noticed a decrease in the geese population after, you know, some of the members were out boiling like 900 eggs. I remember looking at spreadsheets and seeing like what people were doing, and they were really going out. And since it kind of went defunct and no one's been doing it, I've noticed there's more and more geese kind of creeping up everywhere. So it really is, it's a program that's accepted by, you know, animal rights groups and everybody else, and it's actually effective.
Yeah, I talked to some other of my colleagues, other health officers, like what are they doing, and nobody's really doing anything different. Nobody's doing the geese piece, but they're chasing them. I actually thought about training my puppy to go out and chase them. So, but thank you. That would be great. We'll have fun.
I just need to know if you're Greenpeace certified.
I'm not yet.
Oh,
no.
okay. Oh, all right. I didn't know there was such a thing. Okay, all right. I have no questions, seriously.
Okay.
Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm laughing because when my daughter was in the first grade, she wrote a letter to the paper opposing Geese Piece because the geese that were at 20 Pond every year laid their eggs and we watched them every year. So she said, go anywhere else, but don't come down to 20 Pond. So I'll say the same thing this year.
Somewhere else.
So thank you. Obviously, one of the interests that I had that you guys worked on was the poultry and
Yes.
fowl. And I can't tell you how many people are interested in that. So maybe in the spring we could do some sort of a tutorial, or we can get that young man to help do some sort of a tutorial, because I think that's part of this whole process, people understanding what the health department does. It isn't just issuing summons and tickets and taking money for licenses. There's lots of other stuff that you guys do, so I think that's great.
Thank you. Alex is actually, I have to reach out to him, but Earth Day. I know, he said he would come to Earth Day, but he's probably going to be, I was thinking about my daughter at that time, and she was so busy. So we'll see, but I would love for him to come there, and even if he wants to just give me hit something to share, but we were thinking of having baby chicks there just for fun.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for your help with that.
Don, I don't have any questions, thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Don. Just one question. I know we had an increase in the fees last year for records and vital records and so on. There was a proposal for increasing the...
For the food establishments just to roll in the ICE license?
But for death certificates, birth certificates and so on?
We haven't increased those fees.
No, but I know that last year we talked about doing something like that. Where are we now in terms of looking ahead? Is that something that we want to...
Right now, I don't think we should increase the fees. We are currently, the state charges $25 and $2 for additional copies for all three, and we charge $25 and $20, so we're actually more expensive than the state. And I actually lowered the fees for the death certificates. We used to be $15 each, and what happened was we lost some, this is about 10 years ago, we lost some revenue. So I went out and talked to the funeral directors and said, "What? How come you're not purchasing the death certificates from us?" And they said, "Because the state is cheaper." So we actually lowered the fees to make them $25 and $2 to match the state, and they actually now are coming to us. So right now, that's not something that we're thinking about doing.
We were actually losing revenue because of it.
We were, yeah. But we did raise the correction fee. That was the one fee that I couldn't think of it when you asked me. Yeah. We did raise the correction fee because it's very tedious to do corrections, and generally, especially now that everything's computerized, it's usually someone coming in that changed their mind. So we charge a $50 fee.
Sure. All right. Well, thank you for a healthy budget.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay, thank you, Dawn.
Oh, thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too.
So our next budget is for our tax assessor. So Mike Barker, our tax assessor, is here to discuss that.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
A couple highlights from last year. We had another good year from a new construction point of view. We were, out of the 25 years I've been here, it was the fourth highest total that we had. So they're still out there doing a lot of projects, finishing things up, and we're keeping on top of it to process it as soon as we can. Get the revenue from that. We actually processed more of them than we did the previous year, but again, the types of projects that they are can vary, and it affects the total amount that we get. The other thing that we did a little differently this year, we were a little more aggressive in processing the appeals and identifying the properties that we had exposure to and trying to get rid of those particular cases as soon as we can so we can get them off of the books or the dockets, shall we say, and not have these cases go out 3 or 4 years. So we took a slightly different approach. Usually, you usually wait it out. You know, you extend it out and you try to get people to withdraw earlier years, and then they get a little more at the end. But this year we kind of did things a little differently and identified the cases right away that we didn't have a good standing in, and tried to get rid of them. Some of the things that we did was we actually had them withdraw appeals and then focused in on the upcoming year. So there's no exposure at all to the village itself. So we get them the appeal to go away, and we adjust the assessment before it's certified, so then we don't have an appeal process, so there's no negativity to that. That works better on the residential appeals than the commercial. And I'm kind of proud to say here, but we finally got the pending number under 100. So the number of cases that we're down below that. Now that's not the actual number of properties under appeal, that's just the total number of cases, because some of them are multi-year. We're actually down to only 49 properties that are under appeal. And we have two classification issues where we have an appeal pending with Verizon over personal property, and that's pretty much been going on around the state. We lose the personal property once the carrier service drops below 51%. So we haven't had that in about 8 years, so we filed a challenge to that particular decision, and they just, the courts just heard the case that we've been waiting to hear, and we're going to see how that plays out for us. It's not a risk at anything, because we had to remove the personal property, so we haven't been getting that tax. So it may be something that we may be able to get some in the future. That one's not as clear-cut as the other one, which would be Valley Hospital, and trying to remove some of their exemptions. So that's still working its way through the courts. And again, that's no risk because it's still exempt. You know, we chose to take the route of, instead of putting it on the tax rolls, to file an appeal. Then that way there's no financial risk to the village. So we have, it's been about 3 years since that's been filed, so it'll be coming up. As far as this coming year, focus is going to be on transition. I am going to be retiring at the end of the year, as well as my assistant, Chris Hayes. So we're going to be trying to put things in order, get things organized, try to plan for a transition. It's been included in my budget for some overlap. That's where, if we move to the budget, that's where the big change is from last year. Bob and Heather made a decision to have funds available so we can bring somebody in before both of us leave. And then the other item is we decreased the appraisal money that we set aside. Last year, we actually didn't have to use any. Some of the cases that I thought would have had to have appraisals done miraculously went away. They weren't as aggressive in proceeding, so we didn't have that initial risk. But there's also that you never know when you need it. We're anticipating more residential appeals this year, which may require some appraisals. There's some differences of opinion over the sales that have occurred over the past year or so. So there are some distinct differences in the values that you could get from looking at different set of comparables. So we may, excuse me, we may have to have some residential appraisals done, but we lowered that, cut that in half. So overall, the budget's pretty much the same as it was the prior year.
Questions?
Thank you, Mike. Just a question, do you have any idea when the Valley Hospital tax appeal is going to come up? Do you have like any other than it's going to come up soon?
I haven't had a conversation recently with Matt on that, as far as where we are with that. They've also filed appeals on some of their taxable properties. I think those may come up sooner than the other issue. There seems to be still that looking towards the state for guidance from the legislature as far as how they want to handle the hospital exemptions. Matt was on a committee on with the League of Municipalities on that, so he could probably give you a better idea than me at this point in time.
Thank you.
I have no questions, thank you.
Well, I'm sad that you're going to be retiring, but thank you so much for your service to the village. I mean, what a great career.
Yeah, it was.
Really proud of your
How many
service.
years?
I'll finish 26 years here, but I'll have 40 years in municipal government.
Wow. Well,
Commendable. So, I mean, you touched on it a little. I mean, that's obviously a concern with now not being able to write off the entire, not
Yeah.
your taxes. It's really, I feel it's really creating a challenge for the higher priced houses. And, you know, just yesterday and today, houses have hit the market that when you look at them, and I've been in a bunch of houses that I'm sure their appeals are on your desk already, that I'm really curious how it's going to be reconciled, because they're exposing these houses to the market and the value's coming down and down and down and down and down. So it's going to be really hard for tax assessors, not just us, but throughout the state, to say, you know, this isn't what fair market value is if it's been exposed to the market, and, you know, it's going to be a challenge, I feel. So.
It is. Some of it started. I don't give the SALT all the credit to it. I think the market was slowing down before that, and the buyers that are out there that are looking to buy are very, very particular in what they want. And a lot of these homes that we're talking about do need work. And these days, my term that I like to use, people don't want to buy projects anymore.
Correct.
You know, they just want it all done, move in, not worry about it. And they're, of course, open concept is the biggest thing. And a lot of these lovely tutors that we all, you know, fall in love with just don't have it.
Yeah.
And it costs exorbitant amounts of money to convert them. And it's a problem, but I did do something before I came. I just wanted to look at, just so we have an idea, if, of course, if we were to look at the disbursement of value. Now, when I'm talking about the value right now, I'm just talking about the assessed value. I'm not converting this. The total number of residential units, and we refer to residential as single family through 4 family. So there are some multifamilies in this, is 7,426. With the average being 702, and the median being 591. Now, if we were to look at how many of those roughly 7,400 have an assessment over $1 million, it's 1,111. I didn't make that up. It just happened to be that's the way it was. And then if we go to the next level where we start to see a lot of the problems you're talking about, which is like $1.5 million and up, there's 285. And then if we go to 2 million, we're down to 84 units, and above 3 million is 11 units. So it is a problem, but it's not a problem that is affecting a good number of homes. Seems between the million, we still have a lot of activity. And again, it depends on the layout and the condition of those homes.
Yes, but in reality, if you're looking at your average, and then you took your 1.5 million, so that 285 units is the equivalent of 600 of the average units. No, I mean, it doesn't shake out exactly that way, but I mean, you could extrapolate that number, and it really represents a significantly different assessed value or tax value. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, in other words, when you have 285 units at 1.5 million,
right,
and the average, if I think you said 702.
702, right.
Okay, well then that 285 units represents almost 600 units. Do you understand what I'm saying? It represents twice as much.
It would be
the value
equivalent
is
to
twice
600 average homes.
Right.
I'm sorry?
It would be equivalent to 600
Right,
average
that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So,
but there's no impact because they're not selling for $1.5 million. They're only selling for $7 million. You know, you can't put a bunch of them together. They now stand individually.
No. I'm just talking about the value is of those homes in terms of tax revenue. So when you look at it that way, that's how I'm just looking at it. Like, in other words, there's,
yeah, you need twice
even though
as
there's
many.
only, like, in other words, even though we're saying, well, there's only 285 of those represent the value of 600 average homes. And if we look at the 84 at the 2 million, then we're looking at 2.5 times. And if we look at so it actually, when you start to add that up, it's a significant number. If you look at it if you just take that number and apply it to the average value.
Yes, as far as if you're talking about the percentage to total value of the community, yeah, it would be. But what I was trying to demonstrate here is that we're not talking about cutting these homes down to 700,000.
No, I'm not. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that they are the equivalent of 600.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
So when we say, well, there's only X number of those, in fact, it's not X number of those. If you're talking about the value of the tax amount, you have to multiply that times whatever that percentage is.
Yeah, I understand. Okay. But what I was trying to point out was from the appeal standpoint and from a loss of value. Right. There's when we talk about the upper end of the market having trouble marketing, what I was trying to point out was the fact that it's not like we're going to have over half of the community come in and filing appeals and losing, dollars and cents. It's a small amount, and some of these the hardest ones we have, of course, are the ones that get up over 2 million and 3 million, because there's just no comparables there. So it's difficult. We've seen a big drop in those homes. So there's more exposure there. But the closer we get down to that 1.5, the exposure starts to soften. That's what I was just trying to point out there, from a loss of revenue, not the percentage to the total.
Right, understood.
So, Mike, how many homes did you say were over 3 million?
11.
11 homes, okay. So you said we have some exposure at the 1.5 million and up level, is that correct?
Correct.
So if you were to kind of crystal ball this, I want to see if we can come up with some numbers here. The 1.5 million, the 285 units, so I'm assuming that if somebody tries to sell one of these, they ultimately sell it, let's say it's for 1.2, okay? And so several of them are 1.2. Does that mean you're going to get a rush on the other, 200 plus units that are at 1.5 million saying, I want my home valued at 1.2 million now versus 1.5?
We are expecting an increase on non-sales,
Okay,
which is really what we're talking about here.
yeah,
The homes that see the other homes that are struggling, that have sold, and see what they've done. The word gets around real quick. And so we are thinking there's going to be an uptick in that. It's difficult to say, is there? Sometimes it does take a little time, because the sales that we're starting to see that are troubling are into 2019. So those sales will not affect 2019 assessments.
2020.
It would be 2020 where they would start coming in. There were some, after the summer selling season ended, we started to get some troubled sales that ended up closing in November and December. And again, that's not information that can be utilized for a 2019 appeal, because our valuation date is October 1st of the prior year.
Got it. So, I mean,
We
just,
do anticipate, right now,
so have you done some ballparks of this kind of information? So just as, for instance, 1.5 million, the home sells, what are they selling for now, do you know?
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I actually can't answer that question because, you'd have to look at specifics, You could have one home that sells for 900, another sells for $1.2 million, one sells for $1.6 million, $1.7 million.
How about
They're not all, they're...
How about the $2 million homes? What are they selling for now?
Just trying to think of the last one we have. Well, I know we have one in the process. It was assessed at 2.1. It looks like it's going to go for $1.6 million.
0.6, okay. And then I'm not gonna worry about the 3 million. It seems like the exposure we have is the 1.5 million, the $2 million homes. That's it? That's where our exposure is, exposure?
And I would say anything above $1.5 million, because there are...
Yeah. Okay, so we're losing $400,000 on the $2 million homes, and there's...
Well, no, you can't really take one particular one and say this is what the trend's going to be. I haven't done any studies like that.
Yeah, I think it would just be nice to know, to understand. At some point in this year is for us to take a look at those $1.5 million homes, see what they're actually selling for. And I know we need a representative sample, but that would be nice to know.
Well, all the sales are put on the village website.
Okay.
They're all there. It shows what the assessment is and what they sold.
But I'm saying just from an exercise in the tax assessor standpoint, to kind of know where our shortfall is probably well ahead of time, like before 2020. Say, here is our exposure, and I'll make up a number. I'll say, okay, the $1.5 million homes are going to end up being at 1.2. Okay, so you're looking at 300,000 times 285. So that's a big chunk. That's about 7 mil. I would say of assessed value, and then you look at the 2 million. You got 1.6, so you're looking at 4 of those. So you're looking at the 3 million. So you're looking at a loss of say like $10 million in value. Okay, and so that whatever our assessment rate is, that certainly comes off. Yeah, it comes off.
2.53.
Yeah. So that's what we lose from a revenue standpoint.
Actually, we don't lose it. It's made up by everybody else in the town.
How is that?
because from year to year, what happens, you just have a new net valuation taxable, so it puts pressure on the tax rate. So if we lose the...
So what you're saying is we're going to find our revenue by increasing the tax rate. That's what we're going to do.
It automatically will do that.
Oh.
Because what happens is you have a budget that's put in place, and then how the actual share of everybody's is determined is by their value. So if those values are constantly fluctuating, it's going to put pressure on the tax rate.
We're going to have a lot of unhappy residents, potentially.
Well, but the number doesn't go up, so if you had a...
No, but your tax rate goes up on your home, so your tax rate will go up on your home.
So you have a $1 million home and the tax rate is 2.5?
Yeah.
And now the home is less than $1 million? To make up the difference, you're going to come up with a rate that's still going to give you that $25,000, but now it might have to be 2.6 to get to 25. But it's not that we're going to increase the tax overall, just the rate.
Yes.
And when you look at it, we're talking about, say, on a $1 million home, if it goes down 100,000, we're talking about $2,500. All right. The overall value of the community is over $5 billion. So that 2,500 is just
A little chunk, minuscule rounding error.
even at the 10 million, losing $10 million in assessment over when you look at a $5 billion,
It's minuscule. Is that what you're telling me? It's a rounding error again.
But if it keeps, like we did, I don't know if you were on the council then, back in 2013, where we were losing because of the downturn in the economy. We were up to a point where the refunds, because the first year, you're absolutely right, there is a refund on the first year, and then the next year it automatically equalizes.
Yeah.
But when you get up to $1 million in refunds, there's a problem. So we chose to do a reassessment where we leveled the playing field.
Yep.
I don't think we're at that point yet. We don't know what the true impact of the loss of the property tax and income tax deductions is yet. We'll start seeing that coming into the new selling season. That'll be the key to see how the market reacts coming in February and March. And as you said, we can keep track of where the sales are coming in at. That's the data's there.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
That stuff can easily be worked out.
I just wanted to point out, but as many homes as are in that upper price range that are selling for less, in the lower price range, there are many that have sold for considerably more. So I think that's a kind of a point that always has to be, we have to remind ourselves that there are a great many homes that sold for more than their assessed value, and they're still being charged at the rate of the lower value. So that's the true value, and there's a difference in that. So
That's correct.
I'm sure that I don't know if we look at those numbers, where do you look at those? Where do we have a report that states how many homes actually sold for more than their assessed value?
Again, the data is on the village's website
Right.
under home sales, and you see the ratio. So if our town's ratio, the average ratio is 85%, of course anything that's below that is going to be higher. And then we do have quite a few of them. You're absolutely right.
Right.
We had that conversation a little while ago.
Yeah, we just had not very recently.
And but unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about it.
Right.
We're precluded from changing assessments solely based upon selling prices.
I think what everybody has to be mindful of is that there's individuals that purchased their homes for $3 million, and now their house is worth $1.5 million. So they've lost. It takes a long time to save $1.5 million. So the bigger challenge for us is the stability of the municipality and the fact that there are individuals. I can name 3 houses right now that are on the market that one person paid $2,690,000, the house is for sale for $1,600,000. They lost $1 million. That's real money. That was, so it's, the tax rate is a piece of it, but the fact that we have residents who are losing $1 million, $500,000, $250,000, that's the bigger challenge for us. That there has to be a meeting of the minds somewhere so that people don't say, well, I don't get my tax deduction anymore, property values are dropping, even if there's, 1,111 houses under $1 million, we, the strength in our community is our appeal for those that buy houses in that other range. So if they're not going to come here, they're going to go to Saddle River or somewhere where the taxes are only a fraction of what they are here. So there's got to be balance that we have to think about. So, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
No, thank you, Mike, and I'm definitely going to miss you. I think, you've been incredible. I think you've done a tremendous job. What I'm hoping is that you'll have a significant amount of influence on the succession, and that you try to handpick someone that will hopefully be able to fill at least, mostly your shoes, because I think we're coming into a very interesting time for the village. We talk about a lot of the assessments that we're losing, but there's also now going to be an opportunity for an increase in assessments and some offsets that I think are going to be pretty interesting, and hoping that some of the investments that we're making into downtown will translate into higher assessments for commercial real estate properties as well. But I think it's going to be a lot of work. 40 years in this, that's commendable. So I guess you started when you were 10 years old. That's great. But thank you, and best of luck to you. Whatever, you're still young, so you're going to do a lot of stuff for sure.
I agree. It's going to be tough to replace you, and Chris, his assistant, right, is great as well, and they work well together and have done, I know, some in-house revaluations, and so we're definitely going to miss his expertise and his wisdom and his ability to be able to work with residents. There are some tax assessors out there who are not as readily able to do that or willing to do that, and so I commend him on his ability to work with people. So, thank you, Mike.
Well, I'm just part of a team, and it's a very good team. We've through the years, the people that have come and gone, they represent the village very well, and I'm proud to be one of them. It was a great place to work and experience friendship and professionalism.
We still have like 11 months or 10 months left,
I
right?
know, we can't think about it yet.
We're leaving, bye.
We don't let you go yet. Thanks, Mike.
Flies, though. Time flies.
It does.
It does. So we're going to move on to a couple more from actually the final night so that we can use our last half hour, so maybe we won't have to be here so late on that final night. So I'll have Bob tell us where we're going now.
All right, so let's go to tab 3, please. And we'll do finance and tax collector. Okay, so the finance budget is basically flat from last year. The contractual increases are primarily due to the increases are primarily due to contractual. My other expenses are slightly down from last year. The one line item I'll point out is 29, which is other contractual services, and that is where I have my fixed asset system, the maintenance of what I explained to you earlier, Ramon, on tracking our vehicles and things of that nature. So that's I had a partial year last year for it, so that's pretty much new to this year. The next one is tax collector, which is farther back in that tab. And then the tax collector, I have, my tax collector is retiring August 1. So we have a decrease in the full-time salary and wage line because of my anticipation to have a tax collector coming in with less experience and certainly less pay. By the same token, I've put money in there for compensated time. She's been here 40 years, so she has significant vacation sick time that will be paying out. So that justifies the slight increase there. Other expenses are up slightly, mostly in the postage and express charges for mailings and postal fees. Other than that, the budget's been flat. Any questions on the operating? I'll address them, then I'll go into capital. Okay, so you want in tab 21, go to tab 3. And there's two items I'm requesting for this year. One is a scheduling system with time clocks. I've spent the last several months working with the police department on their scheduling system. They use a vendor called VCS. And I've been trying, and since they're compatible with my Edmunds system, I was trying to find a way that we could hook onto that to do time clocks and make that work for the whole village. In doing that, I came across another vendor, Kronos, which the village had contacted several years ago. I have a presentation they're going to make to me next week. They seem to be more in line with the usage for public works and the rest of the individuals as opposed to police, who are more different structures, different time frame, a lot of training aspects and things of that nature. So between the two, I think I'm going to come up with a happy medium and figure out a way to do this. But basically, this is to pay for the entire system and all the time clocks that would go throughout the village. The time clocks will be fingertip sensitive, fingerprint. There'll be no paper, no nothing. They will not be allowed to do any entries by their phones. So they'll have to be present to make it work. However, to monitor time and things of that nature, they will be able to see on their smartphone or on their computer their sick time, vacation time, everything that they need to know that they can make decisions on. In addition to that, we are going with a paperless payroll this year, where the 1099s, the W-2s, paychecks will all be done electronically. And for those individuals that do not have access to that, we will make arrangements to make certain that they do get their information timely. So it's a good thing. And the second thing is a revenue consolidation system. Right now, I have 5 or 6 different revenue sources for credit card usage. I also have those departments that want to expand the credit card usage, health department, municipal court. So I've been looking into a system that we use in recreation called Capture Point. And Steve and I attended a presentation about 2 weeks ago in West Orange where they've implemented this system throughout the whole town, where all their access points are done at point of sale. Next day, it's matched up with collections, and it runs smoothly. It generates the reports that they need, and they only have one service vendor, which will save us money for all the different fees that we have to pay, and also tighten our internal controls as far as the collection of revenue outside of the tax department, which we're very comfortable with right now. So police department, engineering, health, they'll all have one point of sale where if somebody comes in to pay, they enter the information there, pay, and then turn the cash over the next day. So it's a very good system. Still doing some research with it as far as what the downsides may be. I'm going back and forth with the CFO in West Orange. He seems to think that it's, and he also uses Kronos, by the way, for his time clock. So we have a lot in common that we're trying to accomplish. So. Any questions on the capital?
Just a question. So Capture Point, I guess they'll be providing the portal for payments. So it's not our own system just with the processor. It's actually a portal to make the payments. But I know that they do charge transaction fees. So what are we looking at in terms of a transaction as a percentage of the transaction?
I can get that information for you. I know it's cheaper than I'm paying now because I'm going through like 5 different areas, Heartland, and we have 2 other ones in Capture Point. But in looking at Capture Point overall, they were lower than the other ones. But I don't have that number. I can certainly get it for you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Then we're going to journey back to tab 19. No, I really meant two. I'm kidding. So, deferred charges, the two items you see on the first page of tab 19, one is the $50,000 required for the 1/5 of the master plan.
I'm missing 18 and 19.
I'm sorry?
I'm missing tabs 18 and 19.
Let me just slide the computer over to you.
You were going to get there anyway. I'll make sure you get copies.
I know you're testing me to see if I was really.
Where's those glasses? And then the second line item, the capital ordinance, is to fund one of the unfunded ordinances. We put a nominal amount there every year to pay it down. The second tab under interlocal capital and debt service, contribution joint meeting, $695,000. That number actually is down a little. We got the final number. I think it's down slightly to last year for Northwest Central Dispatch. Board of Education, vehicles, salaries and wages, and other expenses. I have it in there the same as last year. That number might decrease, but it's also offset by revenue, so there's no impact on taxes. Capital improvements, I raised it $75,000 for now to $275,000. That number is going to be tied into the capital items that council is going to approve towards the end of our hearings.
Just wait 1 second.
Sure.
Just on tab, you're on tab 19?
Yes. There's 4 or 5 pieces to it. There's 4 tab 19s, I think, or 3.
There's only 3 here. I'm missing 2.
So you have deferred charges, you have interlocal capital and debt service.
I have interlocal.
Looks like this.
Yeah, no, you only have part of it. What is the rest of it?
We're going to grab the public book. Hopefully that has 18 and 19.
Steve, you got it up there? Okay, here.
Right.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, we have it.
There you
Never mind.
This is a different tab.
I can read off the computer.
It was really easy on the computer, honest.
Resisting the paper.
Okay, so under the interlocal, scan down, Steve. There we go.
Is it tab and a tab?
Go one back. No. It's by heart. Sure. We'll keep passing these around. So we're down to maintenance of Board of Education vehicles. You see that one? Under interlocal capital and debt service. Okay, so that's agreement with shared service agreement we have with the Board of Education. That's offset by the exact amount in revenues. So this is just a placeholder right now. That number may go down, up, depends. We haven't finalized the work that we're going to do this year. The next line is capital improvements. Last year we had 220,000, increased to 275 this year. This number is predicated on how you vote on the capital budget, which again, it's 5% basically of any authorizations that you want, so that's what drives this number. So if we're aggressive in a capital budget, this number could probably go higher. Next, you have debt service for your bonds, notes, interest on bonds and notes, and loan repayments. That number is down slightly from last year by about $40,000. With me? Okay. And then if you continue through tab 19, the third tab 19 is statutory expenditures. It's about 6 pages on the hard copy. Pass where you want. Okay. So you see accumulated leave compensation, early retirement incentive, that accounts for any retirees that are leaving this year for terminal pay, so we bumped that up a hair. We haven't finalized what that termination number is, but it's going to be in the range between $400,000 and $500,000. Salary negotiation costs, that's flat to last year. That's contractual agreements. Social Security is slightly up by about, when I say slightly, it's up about 10% from last year. In addition to public employee retirement system and police and fire retirement system, both of which the final bills came in on them, and they're up about 10% over last year. That's it for me.
I think what I have to ask is, going back to the MIS capital, is do you want to expand the Wi-Fi past Memorial Park at Van Ness Square, which was the next place we were thinking of putting it? If not, we can take out the additional monies that are in there, because I believe Dylan had it in his capital budget for Memorial Park at Van Ness Square from last year. So I think that's something, you don't have to give an answer now, but before we finish this budget process, we're going to have to decide if we want to add it to additional parks. I mean, perhaps we should just do Memorial Park at Van Ness Square, see how that goes, and then, expand it to other parks if, we desire to do so. But that's your decision. Obviously it costs to do so, and so we just have to figure out, where you would want to go other than there.
So I have a quick question, Heather, then. Mm-hmm. So when you're in the vicinity of Village Hall and the library, can you piggyback,
Yeah, I'm going to have Dylan come out. That would be helpful, because he's the expert, not me.
Just trying to think of the bubbles and the fields of what the coverage already is. Maybe that would be helpful for us, to kind of give us an idea of the bubble of...
All right, so the coverage right now is probably with almost to the hockey rink area from the stable.
Okay.
Anywhere by the snack stand and that one part of the beach area, up to the kiddie pool area. And then Village Hall is anywhere in Village Hall. And that includes the downstairs and each of the levels. And that's currently what's covered right now. As well as if you're over by the, we're going to have public Wi-Fi over by the recycling center too. Anywhere where we put Wi-Fi for the village, we'll also have the ability for public Wi-Fi to jump on as well.
So here, it's just in the buildings here in the library, you can't get it out?
I mean, if you're outside, you get a little bit of a signal. I would like to put another access point out by the cash house shell as well, because then it will help with a signal for our equipment as well. So we can add in places like that. But if there's some place that we have to add fiber to get to it, that's where the cost comes in. So a lot of the parks don't have fiber to them, or they might have fiber by them, but we have to get to a certain area to where we also get power, because we have to power up the units.
Heather, to your question regarding, Van Ness, I think in terms of bang for the buck, I think is a lot more there, because the idea was, and what we originally started to talk about, it was to attract more pedestrian, more foot traffic into the downtown, have people be able to stay there and do more things and just kind of pop in and out. So I think that was sort of the idea of why we were focusing on that first. And I think, it'd be great to have the money to be able to do it at all the parks. But if we had to prioritize, I think Van Ness, I think we agreed last year that it made sense to go there first.
And we're also, too, looking to add Wi-Fi into the parking garage as well, because we don't know what cell coverage is going to be like inside of it. So we want some form of communication for the police cars or anybody that goes in there from an employee standpoint, and be on the village Wi-Fi. But since it has village Wi-Fi, it will have public Wi-Fi as well.
Okay, so I was correct when I said that we already have the money for Memorial Park at Van Ness Square from last year, correct?
No, we've used that up in the
we
other
did.
parks.
We
We have a
did.
little bit left over, and that's why I was asking for
So
the
the
additional.
18 will cover Memorial
18
Park?
should cover the fiber and the equipment.
Okay, so if everyone's okay with Memorial Park at Van Ness Square, that's where we'll go next. And then, we can discuss further, in future years to other places.
My question isn't why, if we're talking about another $4,000 to $5,000 to add other parks, and we spend $8,900 for Village Hall, Graydon, and the stable, what is Van Ness, $18,000?
To get the fiber up into that vicinity, it's,
Just because, it's just so old,
well, it's a difficult run. It's a little bit more intuitive than what we have. We already have the fiber in Village Hall and most of our facilities. We really don't have much fiber going up into the CBD.
So I can see, for example, Vets Field probably be easier, Maple Field to add because it's within the vicinity where we are now. Maybe Habernickel, not as much because it's further away, it's kind of removed. So is that
That would be,
5,000?
well, no, Habernickel, we already have, we have
have
fiber up there,
right.
so we can add Wi-Fi up there easily.
So what would be a remote area where we would,
I think Van Ness Square is the farthest one.
that's
That's the most difficult one.
which is ironic, it's in the middle of the central business district.
It depends. Some, we might have to do conduit, or some are going to be pole to pole. We have to talk to Signal about it. But I know it's something that we've been wanting to do in that vicinity, plus it would be good to get that up there as well as a communication portion for...
Just as an aside, the tower that went up on the highway under the cover of darkness in the past week, I mean, literally under the cover of darkness. Is that, do we have any access to that tower? I mean...
The only one that I know we have access to is the water pollution control facility. I didn't know anything about the darkness of night tower.
It's cheaper to install it at night.
An old Board of Adjustment application.
I could hear it from my house going in.
Dylan, just a question. So I have Optimum Wi-Fi, and everywhere I go in the world, Optimum is just like that little Wi-Fi thing. It's like true on the commercial, like the little thing is hovering over your head. It's true. So, do we know what other providers offer that same free Wi-Fi? Because I would imagine that an awful lot of people are on Optimum, and it almost seems like redundant to go out and spend, I don't know what the benefit is, $20,000 if people just get that free Wi-Fi on their phone. Do we know? I mean, there's no difference.
I mean, some people do have FiOS or other providers, and they might not have the availability to jump on Optimum, and I believe if you're not a member, there is a fee associated with it to jump onto their network for the day. I don't know if it's a daily fee or a monthly fee, but I know there's a fee.
And we don't know what other service providers have that availability of free Wi-Fi the way Optimum does? I don't
Well,
really...
the Optimum is actually, they work along with Spectrum and another company, and if you go to any, like the Spectrum areas, which is South Jersey or New York, it will also say Optimum Wi-Fi, and then if you're a Spectrum customer, you come here, you'll see, you see one that says cable Wi-Fi. That's usually the same time you see Optimum. Mm-hmm. That's one of the companies, so they all support each other to get a broader network.
Okay.
Because I've noticed that every time you're on Cablevision, or Optimum, there's two other Wi-Fis always available with the same signal strength.
Right. But, so we don't know if, I guess Verizon doesn't offer that?
Verizon does, but it's not, the Verizon FiOS wireless is a little different because they also offer, their cell service offers Wi-Fi.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
So I guess we're in agreement, Memorial Park at Van Ness Square. It will help our communications too, as Dylan said, by running that fiber up there, so it's beneficial in that respect as well. Okay, so I think for tonight, we're finished. Our next night, hold on one sec. Oh, thank you. Our next night is this Friday, so we have water, and then we have recycling solid waste and yard waste, and then we have streets, roads, and the central garage. engineering, planning, zoning, traffic and signal, building maintenance, and water pollution control facility. So that's from 5 to 8 p.m. So, yeah, I will. Sure, yeah, absolutely. So that's 5 to 8 p.m. And it's a hard stop at 8, so we're going to try to, move along as much as we can. This is obviously much more, not only more divisions, but also more capital intensive. So you'll hear a lot more about capital budget requests during that. Okay, so.
All right.
So I just,
Going back to public comments? None?
We was just going to that a little longer.
Have a motion to close? Second, motion to close?
I'll second.
Second? All right.
Aye.
All in favor? Anyone opposed?